Okay, this is the July 9th, 2026 meeting of the Monmouth Planning Board. Stephen O'Donnell, the chair. I call the meeting to order. We have all our members and alternate members here tonight. And the first item on the agenda would be to review the May minutes meeting. And I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept the May 14th minutes.
Motion by Larry.
Second.
Second by Rick. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving those minutes? And then we have the meeting minutes from the last meeting. And I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I make a motion to approve June 11th, 126 meeting.
Second. Second by Ray. Any discussion on those minutes? There being none, all in favor of approving those minutes? Okay. So the old business is the non-residential development application from Red Truck Drive LLC. And I think there's been an amendment. I know there's been an amendment filed requesting approval for 3 guest cabin structures containing a total of 5 guest lodging rooms associated with the existing lodging operation properties, and also seeking approval for 13 new parking spaces to accommodate the additional rooms. And I would note for the record that David Shaw, who's an alternate, has recused himself on that matter and is sitting in the audience. So, Mr. Morrill, you want to tell us where you are with this at this point?
Yeah, so we are here seeking approval for the 3 structures on the property that are on the edge of the fields, which would bring the total of the bed and breakfast to 12 rooms. We've simplified on the plans, what exactly we're looking to do for just the driveway space, the parking, and the cabins, and a pathway down to the cabins.
So your initial plan, I think, had a kind of a secondary entrance on 135. So at this point, that's on hold.
Correct. At this point, it's just the 3 cabins, the driveway around behind the building for the parking area down by the cabins, the second entrance, the parking areas out back, all of that has been put on hold. There were pathways around the barn, and like I said, we simplified everything, and it's just, the basic necessities for those structures.
And I think I saw there was a new phosphorus allocation determination just based on those.
Correct.
And do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So scaling everything down just to what we're asking for tonight, the new pervious area, lawn area, the new buildings, incorporating the drip edge filters around the buildings, all comes in below the phosphorus budget for the property. So no above and beyond measures are needed to
you can treat
Yes.
everything on site.
Yep.
And we have Bill Monagle for Coventry Watershed.
Yeah, I looked at the plan. It's very straightforward. Everything that's on that site that pre-existed or was existing in 1997 is grandfathered. So you're only accounting for what's new for the phosphorus, and it's the 3 cabins, the gravel walkway, and the paved drive around the back.
Yep.
And they are doing treatment, like the drip line filters for the 3 cabins. And don't need to do any treatment right now for the impervious area, the driveway, because they come in just under their phosphorus allocation of like 0.51 or 0.53, they're at 0.49. I think at the next phase, when they want to expand, then they're gonna have to start treating some of these sites that they have right now as part of their bigger scheme, but that'll be going before DEP, but at least at this level, this phase, it's pretty cut and dried, actually, pretty easy. Very, very similar, Steve, to the subdivision. I don't want to name subdivisions in a public meeting, but the one down off 135 where they wanted to at least get a couple lots, in the first phase. And it was, it's at that point, it was a slam dunk and it became more difficult when they went to the second phase, the expansion, so.
So you don't anticipate any vehicles parking next to those cabins?
Not next to the cabins.
So how will people get, say, their suitcases and stuff from behind the building to the building?
Yep, so there's parking down by there, and then there's a pathway down to the cabins. It's a gentle slope. The first cabin is, ADA accessible, so it's fairly level right there, and then it kind of drops down to the other ones.
Exterior lighting for nighttime? What do you anticipate?
So there's lighting on the barn, around the perimeter for safety, and then each cabin has above the door, a down light. So all the areas, if somebody's in the cabin and wants to walk up to the main building, there's lighting. There's a fence with some small solar lights kind of guiding them along.
Is are the lights shielded over the?
Yep.
Anticipated shielding?
But there's no pole mounted lights at the
Okay.
front area.
Right, not like what was planned for the parking lot.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, would it be helpful if I shared the site plan on the screen?
Sure, I think that's a good idea.
And I need to let myself do that. Bear with me for 1 second. This was posted along with the packet, but just for the benefit of this discussion, I thought it would be helpful.
What's that coming around the building? Is that an extension
There's
as we're looking at, at the first cabin, just up above it to the right? What is that in?
That is the parking lot for the cabins.
That's the parking lot? Yeah.
And there's just a 6-foot gravel path leading from there to the.
And how many spaces there, would you say?
5
Five.
spaces, yep, one for each.
Yeah, one for
room.
each. Yeah. And then the other 8 spaces would be up behind the building?
That's the gray area, yeah, so kind of where my cursor is.
Yeah,
now.
okay.
It's this area here, and then if you've been back there, there's sort of an existing like pull off area right now, and you're looking to delineate those.
Yep.
So Isabel, do you have comments you want to make before I ask if other board members have questions or?
Nope, not necessarily. We are processing this like an amended application, so we did send out notice in the paper and mailed notice to the abutters within 500 feet of the project. And we did advertise this as a public hearing just because the application has changed, just so you're aware.
All right. Probably we should have gone into a public meeting.
You can vote to open the public hearing at any point.
So why don't we have a motion to go in the public?
Motion to go into public hearing.
Second by Rick, all in favor? Questions from board members? Ray, go around the table. You?
Satisfied at this point.
Almost it. Yep.
I have none.
Bonnie, anything? Members of the public?
I did review the draft findings of fact and the planner's report. And obviously we appreciate it's been scaled back, but it appears to be phase 1 of something more coming. And I do think that the board is obligated to make factual findings of how this expansion is consistent with the comprehensive plan. I know the town planner, you're saying it's just advisory, but that ordinance is clear. And, you know, my concern was impact upon wildlife. I know there were comments about, oh, well, if we have 172 acres, so why does that matter? But the reality is, I think that the town planner cited that this project is not within one of the key wildlife habitats, but on our parcel is a key wildlife habitat, and wildlife obviously does not know physical boundaries. So all I ask is that a clear factual record be made as to how this, it's a 70% expansion. It's no longer owner occupied. I think that matters a lot, especially with respect to the type of business envisioned in the comprehensive plan, home-based businesses. And it's one thing when you're living in your commercial operation. It's another when you're living in a different town and the abutters have to live with the externalities.
I also asked, why don't you bring your children to live in that situation what you are creating for our child? She has to cross all the time the road, going to the lake, using the buggy, taking her dogs and so on. You want your peace in Wayne or wherever you live. And your children, they have a nice natural home area, but you are creating this noise to our child. And just to compare, when I open my bedroom door, I hear which movie the girls in the camp are watching. I can say exactly, I can quote what they are watching, even if they have those contained speakers. This is way closer. I think the girls' camp, the Kippawa, is like double of the length in terms of bird flight. So I have my concern with that. That it's like somebody's coming, creating a business, earning their money, and they, you know, have their private life somewhere else. But we have to suffer it.
So I just want, you know, the record, because we're recording, so I just want to make sure that, you know, there's sort of identification of both of you for the record. So it's,
Yes.
is it Agni?
Agony.
And then
Joel, yes.
And
And I want to thank the chair. I think you've done a wonderful job. Mr. Chairman. Sure.
so you folks live closer to, you're on the other side of the road, on the Kippawa side, or no?
No, we're on the same side, but our residence
Is on Macon?
the lot is quite large. I would say 400 to 500 feet from the property line.
But is your like driveway on Maycomber Road? Or on
No,
to 135?
It's on 130.
It's on 135, okay. Just so everyone has a perspective.
And all I'm asking is, to the extent this is approved, just a detailed factual finding as to how it squares with the plan. It's kind of conclusory as it's drafted now.
Right. Okay. Did you have a?
How long ago did you purchase the property?
2000, I want to say late 13,
I'm sorry?
12, late 12.
late 2012, late 2012.
At that point, did you realize that there was a previous bed and breakfast at the location that they're working at now?
That's the other thing. I'd like the record to, no,
Yes,
yeah,
no.
I realize that, but I'd like the record to establish in the factual findings the baseline use that was approved. So because right now as drafted, it doesn't identify it was owner occupied, one employee, and the number of rooms. That's all. I'm fully aware. And why are you giving me those smirks?
Let's not.
No, I'm curious, what is why are you dismissing my concerns when there's potentially what's gonna come something much bigger right in my backyard.
Yeah, just getting a foot in the door and then,
So potential and what's actually there is two different things.
yes, but you know, in last meeting, you also were saying you can't assume. I can tell you something. When this property was purchased more than a year ago, I went to the town manager to ask about certain laws and our rights and the right of way and so on. He was telling me exactly the same thing. You cannot assume. However, my assumptions were extended. They went over my assumptions with this project. So, you know, like and reputation matters. And my assumptions were based on their reputations from other businesses and other neighbors where they are running the business. So when people have heard that the property was purchased by this company, they were calling us. We did not know. Our neighbors never introduced themselves to us. We got calls from the community expressing their condolences to our peaceful life because everybody was telling exactly what is happening here now. So, you know, you cannot tell us, oh, you don't assume, you are just imagining things. No.
Assumptions are one thing, facts are another.
Well, happening.
Is that not correct?
Obviously, those assumptions became now reality, true or not. We have this project on the table. And they were only.
We're dealing with the expansion of the bed and breakfast out before us. And if they decide to go further, we're gonna have to get another amendment. We're gonna have to notice it. You know, the whole process will come back. But tonight, it's kind of a limited to the additional 5 spaces. So is it Loretta?
I am Loretta Como, the previous owner of said property, and I consider myself a friend of both these people and these people. We were neighbors for a long time. What I want to point out is perhaps something that people weren't aware of. We had many events at the bed and breakfast. We had weddings for up to 150. We never, ever got a complaint about noise. Okay, we never got any complaints about noise. We talked to neighbors. We agreed to shut down any event by 9:30 at night, respecting the fact that they had children and that there were animals that, you know, the fellow across the street and the camp had to get up very early for the animals. So we did not have anything that went well into the night. And I don't assume, but I have heard that Jason Sarah will follow the same rules. I think the noise from Chippewa.
125 parking spots, that was what was originally proposed.
Mhm.
That's not a material change. That's not gonna be a big
And how,
difference.
Ms. Lorette, with all
Just
the
imagine
respect,
that.
with all the respect, how many events did you have in total in that property?
50, 60.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt for just a moment? And I apologize, Mr. Chair. I think we should keep both public comments, all public comments specific to the application that we're reviewing this evening. I certainly understand some of the concerns with the
Okay,
broader
I see.
thing, but we need to keep it focused on what's actually in front of the board this evening. Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Yeah. As far as the noise relative to the cabins, if the overnight guests had a boombox outside of the cabin and knowing the neighbors, one phone call, because Monmouth does have a very restrictive noise ordinance,
Oh, yeah.
more so than the real
Yeah.
world
Oh, yeah.
ordinance.
I agree. I do. And in fact, you have an ordinance against fireworks other than on the 4th of July and certain weeks.
Certain days.
And the only complaint we ever had was Camp Chippewa. And that was, but we had no complaints against us. I'm gonna just let it go with that.
Okay. You've heard comments. Do you want to respond in any way to this or?
I mean, we feel, I mean, you want to say something?
I think all I really want to say is just that, you know, what we're applying for is to add 5 additional guest rooms for a total of 12. These are interior spaces. We're not doing anything outside. It's not, you know, I can't imagine how this will create any difference in the amount of noise that we make. These are quiet adult people that are just trying to enjoy the space.
Yeah, I mean, we see it as something that's going to benefit the town of Monmouth. You know, a place for people to stay in the community, to see what Monmouth has to offer. You know, again, you know, we have a place in Manchester. It's a tourist destination, and we see it all the time. If you don't have anywhere for people to stay, they're just going to blow right through to the big areas like Bar Harbor, that. And, you know, the bed and breakfast has been here for decades. And again, it's a place to get people into Monmouth, to explore, to go to different businesses. And, you know, that we're part of the community and we want to help the community grow. And, you know, again, for the numbers to get to 12 bedrooms, just financially it works. You know, we're trying to reestablish this, build off of it, and, you know, we've got to make it work, you know. So to think about possible expansion, you know, we don't know what the future holds. It's a beautiful space. It's got a lot of rich history. It's, you know, in the middle of multiple summer camps, multiple campgrounds. So as far as fitting in with a comprehensive plan, it seems like it's a perfect area to have people stay there. And, you know, the cabins, they're 1-room cabins. It's a bedroom, it's a bathroom, and, you know, a footpath up to the main house. Yeah, we think it's a positive for the town.
You have an employee that's going to live on the property, is that basically?
Yes, so the plan is eventually to have, you know, there's the carriage house, to have somebody living in the space. For now, we have a night caretaker on call, so if anything comes up.
It's about a mile away.
Yeah. And we have, you know, we're 5 minutes away. We have a full-time employee on site till 11. And, you know, honestly, so far, most of the guests are, you know, tucked in, you know,
Earlier than that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I mean, right, doors lock at 9, like people are inside.
Anyone else have a question or comment?
I do see some people online, and if they would like to speak, I just wanted to make sure that they felt that they had the opportunity to as well.
Okay, see, there's 2. Anyone that's listening have a question, comment? Are you able to hear us? We have had some issues, I guess.
It's lighting up, which means they can at least hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's no further comment, then I'd entertain a motion to come out of the public hearing.
Make a motion to come up the hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so we're back now on regular meeting of the planning board. Yes, we can entertain a motion to review this amended application.
Make a motion to review this application.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. So as is the case with any commercial project in Monmouth, we are required to review specific items, which again, I have sort of listed. deals with conformity with ordinances, regulations, the comprehensive plan, water, air pollution, water availability, water supply, groundwater, surface water, freshwater wetlands, rivers, streams, and brooks, floodplains, soil erosion, storm water, traffic conditions, sewage waste disposal, solid waste disposal, aesthetic, cultural, and natural values, financial and technical capacity of the applicant. And then lot design doesn't apply because that's for subdivision, but phosphorus management and impacts on adjoining municipality don't apply. All right. So. Fire protection. We're required to determine that the proposed fire protection measures are adequate. We have a statement from the fire department. We've received information from the fire marshal's office as well.
Yeah, so the fire chief, I believe did a walkthrough of the property with the applicant and then had a follow-up email to me, which is included in the project record, indicating that he has no issues with the proposed project, but will want to have a walkthrough to acclimate himself with the sprinkler system. In addition, the in-space has already been reviewed by the state fire marshal's office for compliance with NFPA codes. And that information is public record, so I included the state fire marshal's office record of review in your packet as well.
Yes, I'd first like to take up required review for air and water quality. 6.31B, 6.75, and 6.76. We have a motion on whether there are any issues with the project as far as air and water quality.
To make a motion, there is no issue with air water quality.
Second.
Okay. I think what you've told us is that in terms of stormwater runoff, the drip line filters, they're in place now. And are there trenches along the ground kind of to absorb some kind of stone base? How does the water come off the roof? Is it channeled or is it just coming as?
It's a shed roof, yeah, and there's a filter fabric and crushed stone.
Okay, so we have a motion that project that's now proposed will not result in undue water pollution either on or off site. All in favor of that motion? Next item, water availability and supply. I think there's an existing well for this. We have a motion that the available water supply is expected to be more than sufficient to meet the projected demand for this expansion.
Make a motion that the water availability and supply is sufficient for this project.
A second on that. And by David Mills. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Groundwater. We have to determine that the project will not locate, store, discharge, or permit the discharge of any treated, untreated, or inadequately treated liquid, gaseous, or solid materials, such nature, quantity of noxiousness, toxicity, or temperature that may run off, seep, percolate, or wash into surface or groundwater so as to contaminate, pollute, or harm. Such waters are cause nuisance in the form of debris, oil or scum, color, odor, taste, or unsightliness, or be harmful to human, animal, plant, or aquatic life.
I make a motion that it will not adversely affect the quality of water, surface water.
Is there a second on that? David Mills, okay. And we have erosion control plans that have been submitted. All in favor of that motion? Okay, 5-0. Next item is surface water. So this is a project that is within the watershed of Cobussy, but not within any shoreland zoning areas. And we have to determine that erosion control standards, stormwater management standards, and phosphorus control standards are adequate, and that the standards will be met and the application will not adversely affect the quality of surface waters of the lake or streams running into it adjacent to this property. We have a motion?
I make a motion that the freshwater wetlands and the standards have been met for this project.
Relative to surface waters?
Hmm?
Relative to the surface waters. Is there a second? David Mills, second. Any discussion? In favor? We have to address freshwater wetlands, whether they've been delineated and identified on the submitted plan set. And I think there is a plan that shows significant wetlands, not in the area of development right at this present time. Do we have a motion?
Need a motion for what now?
That the wetlands have been identified and on a plan.
I make a motion that the wetlands have been identified on the plan.
Second by David. Any discussion? All in favor? The rivers, streams, and brooks standard doesn't apply. And similarly, we don't have floodplains that are affected here. So that review under the floodplain management ordinance is not required. Pass on that. Soil erosion and erosion control. So we have an erosion and sedimentation control plan. Includes best management practices as outlined in the main erosion and sediment control best management practices, BMPs, manual for design and engineers. So do we have a motion that this project will not adversely cause soil erosion, any
This project will create soil erosion and has a control plan. And it's been submitted.
Any further discussion on that? All in favor of that motion? Stormwater and phosphorus. Some discussion of that already. And I think the information we have is post-development, the project will result in approximately just under an acre of total impervious area, or a net increase of 0.4 acres. And as discussed, the runoff from the new cabins be conveyed to roof drip line filters. We have to have EMPs to minimize the phosphorus discharge toward Cobussy watershed. Again, this is the roof drip line filters. The calculations submitted by the applicant's engineer indicate it's below project phosphorus budget for the project. Does not require mitigation. We have input from Cobussy watershed that again, there's no further mitigation needed at this juncture. So do we have a motion that this project will not adversely affect any stormwater management or phosphorus management issues?
Make a motion that this stormwater phosphorus will not exceed the next foot.
For phosphorus,
For phosphorus, correct.
and there's no stormwater issues.
And it's also.
Any further discussion of that issue? All in favor? Traffic conditions is on 135. I think now this is a fewer vehicle trips than would be anticipated if there was a bigger project. Do we have a motion that this development as proposed now will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion or unsafe conditions with respect to the use of highways and public roads?
This will not traffic control and transfer and have any traffic condition or transfer impact. Say that correct. That this traffic will not have any traffic condition or transportation impact.
Isabel will clean it up for you.
Yeah, thank you.
I would say there is some impact. The standard, however, in 631L is that it can't have an unreasonable impact. So,
So-
but I had put,
So basically, this project meets the standard.
right,
Okay.
yeah, that could be your
Okay.
question.
There you
Yeah.
Dave, you're seconding that? Yes. Any further discussion on that matter? All in favor? Okay. Storage and solid waste disposal. Plan, I think we have a fenced-in concrete dumpster pad. Applicant told us that they intend to contract with a private hauler for the disposal of solid waste once the project is in operation. I don't think there'd be any more construction as far as this is concerned. So I'd entertain a motion that the solid waste disposal standard has been met and there will be no impact to municipal solid waste disposal.
I make a motion that the solid waste disposal needs to state that it will have no impact to municipality solid waste disposal.
There a second? All in favor of that one?
Yes, I would question if there will be no impact on municipal solid waste disposal. We're hearing there's problems with transfer station handling this stuff. This is for removed from,
Well, we're talking about trash. We're not talking about human waste or,
Cause they do have a pad where they're gonna have,
Yeah.
dumpsters there.
there's construction materials, whatever.
It's not necessarily going to the transfer station in town. Is that correct?
That's what I was getting at.
Correct, yeah,
That's a
we
good question.
hired Riverside for the bed and breakfast trash, but also any construction debris. And we haul it to Hatch Hill and Augusta as well.
That's the question. Where does it go? And you have, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Bonnie.
Okay, well, it just says that you intend to contract. I'm assuming you have
Yep,
made
we
that
have the contract with
Okay.
Riverside.
Well, I think we should revote on that since there's been additional comment.
Yep.
All in favor of the original motion? The next standard is the aesthetic, cultural, and natural values, preservation of critical natural and cultural resources. The development area is not located on the shoreline, will not obstruct any public access to a shoreline. And I think the submission and the review from the state is that this project is not located with any inland waterfall or wading bird habitat, deer wintering areas, or any endangered, threatened, or special concern wildlife habitat. And this is from the mapping through the, beginning with habitat or the Maine Natural Areas Program.
And
And there's been no sites identified that are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And it's not located on a hilltop or ridgetop area with any of the scenic views that were identified in a comprehensive plan that was done back in 2007.
Mr. Chair, if I could jump in here, just because there was a question from the public about this. So I am looking at the standard in section 674, which delves more into habitat preservation, visual resources, et cetera. So the first standard here says that any development shall be planned, sited, and constructed so as to avoid impact on critical wildlife habitat or critical natural areas identified in the comprehensive plan, including the habitat of endangered or threatened species. So some of the board members will recall when we went through the comp plan process, we designated what we called in our plan critical rural areas, which had habitat or otherwise environmentally sensitive areas. So that's the first standard. The second standard says any application for development within a deer wintering area as identified in the comp plan shall be offered for review by the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife prior to approval by the town. Not relevant here as we understand from the available mapping. And then the other standards that is referenced sort of wrapped up in this same section is section 6310. And I'll talk about that as well. So the standard here says the proposed development will not have an undue adverse impact on the natural or scenic beauty of the area, aesthetics, historic sites, significant wildlife habitat, or rare and irreplaceable natural areas. So significant wildlife habitat and rare and irreplaceable natural areas are regulatory terms that is encompassed by what Steve had mentioned from the Maine Natural Areas Program and the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. So when I'm thinking about regulated habitat areas, it is inland waterfowl and wading bird habitat, deer wintering areas, and mapped endangered, threatened, and special concern wildlife habitat areas. And this particular property is not within any of those. It was referenced that a neighboring property is within a deer wintering area, which is true. And I do have the map if you're interested in seeing that to help with your findings.
So do we have a motion? Whether the standard for aesthetic, cultural, and natural values, preservation of critical natural and cultural resources is met under this project. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? There's a standard that the applicant has to meet or show that they have financial and technical capacity to plan for and complete this project. And the improvements related thereto. I think there was a letter, Kennebec Savings Bank does your financing, is that?
Yep, go ahead.
They've had several different professionals that they have retained to assist them in the preparation of the application.
A motion that he has the financial technical capacity to in its project. Finance this project.
Is there a second? All in favor? 5-0. Impact on the adjacent municipalities doesn't apply. Exterior fixtures and signs. The information we've been provided is that there won't be an internally illuminated sign or an electronic message sign. Are you changing the sign that's there? I assume it's
Yes.
it already been?
Yep,
put
yep.
some-
There was a sign originally and we put up a new frame for it and a new sign, I think probably a little smaller than what was originally there.
In about the same spot.
Yep.
With the same electrical.
There's a light
Yep,
Yes.
shining.
shining on the
Yes.
sign. Any motion on that matter?
Make a motion to extend fixture signs.
Performance standard is met. Is
Standard site.
there a second?
Second.
All in favor? So then we have a standard on vegetation and landscape integration. You want to say something on there it is. So the proposed development has to show it will provide for the retention of contours and vegetation in their natural state insofar as practicable by minimizing tree and soil removal and grade changes, and for the restoration of landscape through grading and revegetation of disturbed areas and planting of buffers if required.
The board will remember that in our rural areas, as designated by the comp plan, within rural areas, clearing limits should be located to reduce the visual impact of new buildings from the street or from identified areas of high scenic value. And there also needs to maintain a wooded buffer strip no less than 50 feet in width along all existing public roads and along the outside perimeter of the property to be developed. The buffer may be broken only for driveways and streets. And the applicant has, and I can bring up the plan if you're interested in seeing that.
We have a motion on that standard.
I make a motion that the applicant has met the standard. of
Vegetation
vegetation
and landscape integration. Second by David. Any further comment? All in favor of that standard, that motion on that standard? 5-0. Okay. Lot design does not apply. Are there any concerns about public safety with this project? We have review by State Fire Marshal. I think the fire department has also been in, voiced no major concerns. Is there a motion on whether this meets the public safety performance standard?
I make a motion that meets the public safety.
Second.
Any discussion? Favor? Um, the next one is homeowners association. Again, that's a subdivision standard. Standard that it project has to handle and store safely any toxic or hazardous materials. And this is a bed and breakfast. I think you probably just have cleaning supplies or this. Do you use gas? Do you have some kind of propane or how do you?
Yep, we have propane, we have underground propane tanks, all new, everything's brand new. And we've got the monitors, the fire suppression system, all of that.
And I think, Isabel, you thought this standard really isn't applicable because of the nature of the business. Is that your take on that?
Yeah, the way that I think about this, for example, is if you needed to prepare some sort of spill prevention and response plan. So in another community, I reviewed like a quick oil change place. That's obviously a toxic material that's being stored on site. And so they had to go above and beyond by preparing that spill prevention and response plan, which is one of the notes of this standard. And the other note on this standard is that all materials must be stored in a manner or location which is in compliance with appropriate rules and regulations of the Maine Department of Public Safety and other appropriate state and local regulations.
I think as a matter of course, it may be better to just have a vote on whether the standard would be met in terms of, I guess you could consider bleach or any cleaning material, maybe a hazardous, but certainly not going to be there in any significant quantity or. But I think for completeness of the review, we should address the standard. Though it's not the type of business you would typically be concerned about. Do we have a motion that that standard is met?
I make a motion that standards met.
All in favor? Street improvements doesn't apply. Access to the development, which looks at internal circulation and adequacy of parking. And we've heard that 13 new spaces are proposed. There's no new entrance required. And it looks like we have a standard about a certain number of spaces, particular uses. Looks to me that they may be exceeding that required standard. Is that?
Yes, that's correct. So our standard is 1 space per room rental and then 1 space for each employee. And the applicant had told me in follow-up conversations that there would be 3 or 4 employees associated with the inn and cabin uses.
We have a motion that the standard for access to the development, internal circulation and parking standards are met.
Make a motion that they are met.
Second.
Any discussion? Favor? Okay, outdoor lighting. So does this project meet the standard for outdoor lighting, that we don't want strong dazzling light or reflection of light leaving this property onto neighboring properties or public ways?
I make a motion that the outdoor lighting has met the standard.
Favor? And we have a standard on noise. Residential threshold of 45 decibels at neighboring property boundaries between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. increases to 60 decibels, 7 to 10. And I think, the suggestion is to have the applicant be aware of what the quiet hours are, have noise cutoff times to avoid any claim of nuisance as far as noise, but we're addressing this now is as proposed, is the standard map.
I make a motion that, the applicant's been advised of our noise ordinance and met their standard.
Second.
All in favor? And the final review question is whether this project complies with local ordinances and whether it's in compliance with our comprehensive plan. A lot of people, when they look at what a comprehensive plan is, it's not a ordinance as such. It doesn't impose any standards. A lot of people refer to it as a roadmap. It's where the town maybe would like to be in terms of various planning issues that the state, requires the town to look at. And, it's an important document. There's no question, but Monmouth has not, we've had several attempts in the past to impose zoning in Monmouth, which has been pretty soundly defeated every time that has come forward. So this comprehensive plan or comprehensive site review ordinance we have is as close as we could come to some regulation that takes into account people's right to do something to their land, but also to look at the interests and rights of the neighbors and the community as a whole. And so we have to consider whether this proposal meets the ordinances and meets the goals of the comprehensive plan as, sometimes we say as fully practicable as possible. Any development has some impact. And so the question is this one that is beyond what the standards require? So I think that's the motion would be, does this project as proposed to add these cabins comply with the local ordinances and the comprehensive plan?
I make a motion that this project meets the local ordinance and our comprehensive plan.
Is there a second to that? Any discussion? Anyone want to get comment? Hold on.
Is it appropriate for me to make it?
Sure, it certainly is.
Okay, I do want to just build upon what the chair said. So we just went through our comprehensive plan process in 2025. And those of you who were on the comprehensive plan committee and heavily participated in that process will remember that key component of the comp plan is the future land use plan. And so that's really what a lot of the ordinance conversations that we are having after this on the agenda are focused on these days. So in preparing the draft findings for you all to consider, I took a look at the future land use plan. And as was noted, this is in the rural area, not one of the critical rural areas that has some more significant habitat or the desire for preservation of farmland soils, things like that. So the vision for the rural area noted that it anticipated some level of private investment, but for various reasons, development in a rural area is typically less intense because of a lack of infrastructure like public sewer, water, and sidewalk connectivity. Specifically, the future land use plan within the town's adopted comprehensive plan notes that development within the rural area, quote, should be managed in ways that are appropriate to maintain and improve rural character, with a recognition that left unregulated, these areas are susceptible to inefficient, sprawling development patterns common in suburban areas. Within the future land use plan and then within the broader document as a whole, there were a number of key priority goals that were discussed. A key goal of the economy facet of the comp plan was that, quote, Monmouth's economic climate increases job growth in the community's desired sectors: agriculture and forestry, retail, restaurant and service, and cottage industry. Few related objectives, especially as they relate to future land use, as they were called out in that section, said support local entrepreneurs, home business and cottage industry, and objective 5.6, which is to encourage tax-based growth in order to maintain the town's quality of life benefits, historic, cultural, and conservation assets. What I had prepared in the draft findings was that because this project involves the rehabilitation of an existing building and expansion of uses already existing on the site, this project is consistent with that land use vision for the area. In addition, and maybe more important, it supports the adaptive reuse of an existing farmhouse, a practice that is fundamentally consistent with preserving rural character. And those of you who were involved in that comp plan process, we had some of these conversations about rural character versus rural function and what word we want to use through our visioning documents. So ultimately, we landed on character with a recognition that to some extent, rural function of land is going away, but that rural character was still important. So the continued use of the existing farmhouse helps to maintain the authentic appearance of the rural landscape while accommodating contemporary needs and the shifting market dynamics that we're generally aware of. You can disagree with that interpretation, and I would invite you to do so in your draft findings. But that was what I had prepared for you, just so you're aware.
Anyone want to add, comment on this?
Well, I think, what you said and looking, what this project does is maintain this historic building, this site. Probably not the original use as a horse and like it used to be because times have changed. But walking through there and seeing some of the craftsmanship that's in that building. And I still talk that, you would, save that some of these old doors and all that stuff. I think this project will do that. And that's what's, is part of saving the character of that area.
And I know you folks may disagree.
Hold on, I would prefer shingles
Yeah.
for the cabins. I think it's not melting well in that area, but this is from the architect, maybe it's a comment that maybe everybody has a different taste.
Well, and unfortunately, and it's not fault of the applicant, the horse got out of the barn a little early. The door was left open by a prior code enforcement officer who I think misinterpreted what he could do, and he sort of approved those cabins. Now, maybe over time, they'll say, yeah, maybe these should fit in a little better with the existing building. They do stand out.
Yes.
It's a little bit unfortunate. I wish we could have maybe steered you in a slightly different direction, but as I say, this project got off on the wrong foot in several aspects. But I guess the question for us is where does it fit within our standards and our ordinance and what we'd like this town to be? I think this is a historic building. They're all the Woolworth buildings are. And we're lucky that many of them have been saved and restored. It's really, the town's going through this now with this building next door, it's, once something's gone, it's gone. And it changes and, the event center, that's a bigger question. But we're dealing now with just the cabins. So, all in favor of the motion that this project would meet the requirements of the local ordinances we have and the newly adopted comprehensive plan?
What do you need, a motion or?
Yes, motion.
Make a motion that this project meets a comprehensive plan
And the ordinances?
in the new ordinance.
Sorry. All in favor? All right, so then the question is whether more often than not, when we take a vote and we approve something, there may be conditions of approval. I think the planner has set out five conditions.
Doing there, is 6.1 be added to that with the fire marshal final inspection of the sprinkler system? Part of that,
Yeah, we can add that.
fire marshal, and fire chief. Fire chief.
The fire chief was the one that specifically
Okay.
requested that. Yeah.
So how do we want to state that?
Basically, as a project's completed, there's a final inspection by the fire chief. Make sure that everything is working adequately.
Yeah, and the sprinkler system has a sprinkler company that, we have a monitoring contract. So, they come and they inspected it, they did the final connections. There's an alarm system that is connected directly to the fire station. So, yeah.
I think the fire chief was,
The fire station gets notified.
Correct. Yeah, the alarm goes off.
Or smoke detectors.
prior to occupancy, walk through by the fire chief to confirm no issues with public health and safety. That's,
Yeah, so,
They haven't done that.
right, so
It's a,
It's just
just a cabin. Just a cabin.
just a camera. Yeah.
yeah,
So I wrote, here's what I would
Okay.
propose. Prior to occupancy of the cabins, the applicant shall coordinate a final walkthrough of the buildings with the fire chief to allow him to acclimate himself with the sprinkler system for the projects, which was the wording that he used in his email.
Yep.
I don't know that he's actually looking to formally approve anything. I
Right.
think he just wants one more final look.
okay. Sometimes we have a condition regarding the roof grip lines and so forth, but they're already constructed and in place, so I don't think we need that standard. Is there gonna be any more grading of the parking area or anything? Is that all completed?
At this point, it's kind of, going in the areas that, trying to get grass growing where we can.
Yeah.
If possible.
Yeah.
Situation.
There is a standard, right, when there is soil disturbance, it has to be remedied by, is it November 15th?
Outlined in the best practices manual.
Right,
and
so
we
that will
already
come
referenced that.
in number 2.
Condition 2, yeah.
Okay, so I think we're set then on that. Okay. So we have a motion to approve this with the 6 conditions, 5 listed on page 8 of the planner's report, and page 9, and then the additional number 6 that the planner.
I move to approve this application of the Red Top Drive LLC condition existing in use. Construction of cabins, total 5 bedrooms, expanding the in use. Establishing 13 new parking space for a total of 21. Associated improvement at 19 Moose Drive, tax map 43, lot 24. Back findings and condition approval 1 through 6.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Okay. So the next step will be we'll get a written decision out. It Shouldn't be too long.
just get a clarification on the one with the land. The three new structures don't seem to be on a foundation. To the extent they are ultimately demolished or removed, does that mean that three new structures, whatever they may become in the future, are going to run with the land in any new buyer?
So it's actually in specific reference to the plan that I put up on the screen. So I guess theoretically, to get at your question,
This whole grandfather thing gets really stretched. And that's why I think that should be potentially amended, but clear.
So what we're doing is we're approving the plan as submitted. So if, let's say, one of those cabins gets destroyed, they can replace it. They have a year to replace it, basically.
But there's no foundation. They're on stilts.
Well, there's a footprint. There's what we would call a footprint that delineates the area. You know, it's so many feet by so many feet. So they can't expand those cabins without coming back. So they're limited to basically the footprint on the ground. The site review really doesn't address the kind of the interior of the building or some of the aesthetic features of it. It's just looking at it as it affects the land itself, you know, and it's, but they're limited to the plan, so they can't.
So location footprint.
Location footprint.
As shown on the approved and referenced site plan.
Without a true foundation.
Yeah, but it's got a pad of some kind. There's got to be drainage and so forth, or just can't.
So it's on techno metal posts. They're helical posts that get drilled down into the ground below the frost line. So
Any future development will remain on those posts. That's what I guess I'm concerned with. Is there's talk of, well, maybe we'll change this.
Right.
And it runs with the land. It could be to the new buyer or whoever, you know, if you ultimately sell. You know, what could that become?
Yeah, see, this comes up in many contexts that we are really just, as a planning board, looking at that footprint.
Like the planning board didn't review
the building permit.
Construction materials, the foundation, that's not necessarily the planning board's purview.
Footprint here is 4 stakes in the ground, basically.
Sorry, there's a misunderstanding.
That's the way I see it, but
The footprint here that I'm referencing is what's shown on the site plan. So truly just looking at the area shown here, not anything that was reviewed by the code enforcement officer.
So I hope that's helpful. All right, we can move on to our other agenda issues.
thank you very much.
Other business, we have kind of a work session.
Sitting on my little bench down by.
The amendments.
Dragonflies and.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I could get down there anymore.
Yeah.
If they bring me and drop me off by helicopter, can you went down helicopter?
That's good to see you.
Sign.
Thank you so much.
I did not sign because she wasn't available when I was available.
Oh, well, yeah, if I had the paper, that's where you went. But that's all right. This is a workshop meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do have a draft that was included in your packet, and hopefully I would, before we get started, I would say I would save this draft for the next handful of meetings, because I think we'll end up spending some time further beyond this evening, since we only have 45 minutes left. I think what I would like to do tonight is really spend some time discussing the dimensional standards and some of the changes that are resulting from housing. And then I do have some specific questions that I can come back at a later date with another revised draft. But think that's what I would like to do first, if you don't mind. So, I will put it up on the screen, but, the page number that I'm looking at is page 21 of the ordinance document, the red lines document, and it's the, table that I've added around dimensional standards requirements.
Can be helpful, I think. Start in 21, it's the red. Back to the. It's gonna move up around. See. Yep. Get in? Yep.
Also your way, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
And I am happy to zoom in as we sort of discuss this, because I know that this is small print. So, just to give you a little bit of a primer to this, what I have done is instead of having, the whole list of dimensional requirements, minimum lot area required for dwelling unit, I've taken a little bit more of a modern approach to this and put it all in table form. And then you'll recall that because of the changes that the state has adopted around housing, it has de facto created this system where explaining between just sewered and unsewered lots is no longer allowable. We really need to go beyond that because we have some areas that are sewered and in the growth area and a couple of lots that are sewered but not in the growth area. So I've taken a stab at drafting those changes to align with state law. And I think it might be helpful. So what I have done is essentially created this framework that is that differentiates lots between if it's connected to public sewer and within the growth area, if it's on a septic system and within the growth area, if it's connected to public sewer and within the rural area, which as we discussed, there are probably about 10 lots that this would apply to, frustrating. And it's on septic and within the rural area, that would be the majority of the rural area. The other thing that I've added, and I am actually soliciting feedback on this, is we just had this conversation about the critical rural areas and that these were environmentally sensitive areas or areas that had prime farmland soils or areas where the future land use section of the comp plan really describes this framework where we were working to better protect those areas. So what I've done is I've also created more strict requirements for the critical rural areas than exist in any other place in Monmouth.
How critical?
What was that?
How critical?
So the critical rural areas are what we had discussed. So the aquifer areas, and I can pull up a map if that would be helpful. The critical rural areas were areas of prime farmland soil that also didn't have extensive development because we have an area of prime farmland soil, but it's kind of the village area that has already been built up. So there's no point putting that aside for farming anymore per se. So this was aquifer areas, like the Monmouth League's bog area, and then some areas in South Monmouth that have prime farmland soils that we had conversations about being more protective of. So to get at your question about like how more strict is it, what you'll see here is that it's essentially doubling the minimum lot area requirement. So if you're utilizing septic systems and you're within the rural area, your current requirement is 40,000 square feet, about an acre in a lot area. Mm-hmm. I'm proposing that in the critical rural area, and I can pull up that map if people are interested, it would be almost 2 acres.
Yeah, and I guess I go down a different road there.
Okay. Can you expand on that? Is it way too strict? Like maybe something is appropriate, but that's way too strict? Or are you just not in favor.
Yeah, we used to say 2 acres in the rural area, so I think we're lessening the standard,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
The farmland is a real sore point with me. Okay? Don't like the idea of having handcuffs on the farmers.
Okay,
What
so
about if it's a solar farm going on the farmland?
Yeah, you just beat me to the punch.
Well, 2 acres is 2 acres. What, how do you distinguish it? You want to try to distinguish it between the two.
You're trying to defeat sprawl
Yeah.
in the rural area. So an 80,000,
But if you, to David's point, you drive around and everywhere where there are lots of places where there was farmland and that, it's now been converted into a solar farm, which is no longer usable as
Farm soil is gone. It's the farm soil, part of that ordinance is gone,
It's
the comp plan is
disappeared, and
gone.
you probably never recover it.
So you want the farmer to struggle owning land that he's not gonna farm.
I'm sorry, again.
I says, you're willing to let a farmer struggle owning land that he does not intend to farm any longer.
He may not, but the next generation may. I mean,
That's already come out. That's the problem with farming today, is the next generation has no interest.
So you want to change the use of the farmland into something, or let the farmer change the use into something profitable?
Yeah.
Commercial,
Whatever, okay?
could be residential,
could be commercial.
Could be solar, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So can we, if a farmer wants to do that, can he do it 2 acres?
that's what we're saying.
That's what we're thinking.
Yeah.
So can we allow 2 acres of it to become that at a time? And we can do 2 acres to satisfy some people. And then, a year later, that person could come back and, and said he's still struggling, say, if it's a farmer. But do it in 2 acre plots. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the answer or not.
so I'll kind of go back and I'll pose this. I mean, again, I'm open to the discussion here. This is why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
I'll kind of go back to what I had just shared about the vision for the rural area versus the critical rural area. The rural area, we did anticipate some level of private investment. We just didn't want to encourage that private investment
Right.
through expansion of sewer out there or, making it easy. In the critical rural area, the vision was really low density residential or almost no development unless it's in support of farming, environmentally sensitive uses. It was meant to be very, the vision kind of anticipates that it would be more difficult to develop in those areas.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of my issue is, you're driving the cost up to prevent this from happening, which is the problem we're facing with ADUs.
There's no question. There's no question that ADUs have destroyed what we've tried to establish all along in a rural area. And if you want to expand that into a critical rural area, well, you can't because it's already a homestead. So it wouldn't be in a critical rural area if it's already a homestead lot, so. Unless it's.
You already have a resident in that area that now we're saying, bingo, you fall underneath this.
I know, as long as it meets 40,000, they can do it.
It might be helpful for us to take a look real quick at the future land use map, if you bear with me for a second, just so we can kind of orient ourselves to the areas that we're talking about here.
Critical use areas in shoreline zone.
They're separate from that, I think.
yeah, separate.
Okay, separate from
Yeah.
that. So
To
they
some
can't be
extent.
a critical
Right.
rural area in a shoreline zone because it's rural and shoreline. Two
Well,
different names.
They're, so, let me show you and then I'll kind of talk through it.
I'm trying to distinguish it in my brain.
Well, yeah, the question is, which standard has priority over the other one? Is it
Well, that's
critical
what
rural?
this-
Yeah,
That's what this is all about,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So, to answer your question before this, while this loads,
There
the
it is.
more strict standard would guide. So depending
Okay.
on what is more strict, that's the
Okay,
guidance
all right.
or the requirement. Typically, the shoreline is gonna be more strict.
That's what I'm thinking.
To some extent. Okay, so, of course, the green is the growth area. The red that you're seeing is where we have existing sewer. So you can hear that, there's a handful of lots down here that are on septic. Potentially some lots on Academy and then some lots up here, down 202. The critical rural areas are these purple areas. So this is Monmouth Leeds Bog Conservation Area, which had its own specified vision, which was really, protecting the environmental and habitat considerations of that area. This is, I can't remember what we named it, but the reason that we designated it was because it's both home to aquifers and then also home to some of these prime farmland soils. And originally I had put these separate and someone on the comp plan committee, Andy, suggested combining them.
Mhm.
And then this one here is Sawyer agricultural area, I think is what we called it. And that again is because of the soils in that area. So there's kind of 3 different uses and 3 different reasons why we designated them critical rural. This one because of its proximity to the Monmouth Leeds Bog. Again, that would also be regulated by shoreland to some extent, because it's a resource protection area. This one because of the aquifer and soils, and then this one specifically because of the soils. So there's kind of 3 reasons why we might want to be more strict about our requirements, was my thought process.
And I think we got what we got from DEP this week, the shoreland handbook basically said you can't have the ADUs in the shoreland zone, correct? They're not.
Unless they have more than 40,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And they're 250 feet back from the water.
Yeah. So those are getting, it's about the only area where the real limits are gonna come into play.
And I don't think that really impacts what you're talking about. You're talking more of the flat open farmland.
Yeah.
That we have been using for solar in the last,
Unfortunately.
which is in that purple zone.
Yes.
It's all in that purple zone.
Yes,
practically.
Yes,
It's really all, except for the Berry Roach one, it's all level.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the Berry Road one is in a bog area.
Yes.
So it really does apply to what we're talking about.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we've heard from Ray, who might want to relax these regulations, either for it to be the same as the rural area, or at least not 2 acres. Wondering what other people think.
I've always liked the 2 acres in the rural zone myself,
Mhm.
you know. We still have house, you know. That's the South Monmouth Road grows houses and grows solar.
Apparently.
That road has
Yep.
changed so much in,
Yep.
Yeah.
the last 30 years. But I don't think the difference is that significant.
I don't think, when you're talking those house lots, there aren't too many along South
Right,
Monmouth.
that are gonna
Yeah.
be,
Yeah, exactly. I think would help us with regulating more solar, for sure.
Yeah.
Which I think was high on my priority list. We don't need any more using up our farmland, but the farmer still has to make use of the farmland. And if he can't do it, you have to give him an out, otherwise he's gonna lose the farm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So somehow we have to come to a compromise. I don't want a data center on a farmland lot. You know, let's face it.
Just as an aside, because you brought it up, I just want to flag, I'm having my summer intern do some research around data centers and like best practices. You guys are kind of obviously a much different context than, you know, one of my other clients is like a former mill town that has this old
Oh, yeah.
mill that like has its own electric substation, has its own wastewater treatment plant, has its own infrastructure. Maybe that's appropriate.
Correct.
We can argue. Whereas this is like probably not an appropriate place. So she's doing some research around like best practices in other rural areas. So that we can come forward probably at the end of the summer or early fall with some recommendations around like how we might want to handle this.
Yeah, what if the mill in North Monmouth closes?
They don't have a substation.
They don't have a substation. but
And that's their major, they have the water, but they don't have the substation.
Yeah.
And the substation is almost more important than the water.
Yeah, that's almost a requirement, yeah.
So we don't have kind of a real good potential, but,
No.
you know, but I think it's something you look at.
Oh,
Yeah. My concern is kind of to your point, like just the sheer amount of like open, easy to develop field areas.
Mm-hmm.
That is what is my bigger concern.
I know,
And once
but
it's
I'm
gone,
trying to
it's
think of
gone.
an out for Ray. And I just can't think of anything, I'm not a farmer, I don't know what a second job that would keep him on the farm if he's not farming anymore.
And there's really not much that the town can do to support the farm. I mean, you gotta make a
That's up to the
living.
legislature to cut
I know.
taxes on farmland.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's not
yeah.
us.
No, we can't, there's
That's
not.
the only way you're gonna keep a farmer
Yep.
farming.
And then what happens is that tax burden.
And then the
gets
tax
shifted-
burden
It
shifts.
shifts to all the rest of us.
So-
So it's a real tough.
Yeah, but if we want that land preserved, then, okay, ante up a little bit more. That's, you know, yeah, you can't have both ends.
Yeah, but to a lot of people, they don't care about the farmer, they care about what's in their back pocket.
Yeah,
Look at this building next door.
Yeah. Put $1 million in it, and sitting there.
And we have 10 years to go. So
I
it's a
still
tough
like
one.
2 acres.
So I don't know how you're gonna. I would love to see it kept at 2 acres, you know, because that's what we've been, our standard. I don't know, Ray, if you can come up with a way to get around that. There's no other jobs that I know of that a farmer could do except sell it to
A developer.
a developer or solar panels.
And I will say I did try to not be, I mean, I know that 2 acres is different, but I did try to not be overly restrictive. Some of my towns that I work with that really care deeply about this kind of thing are at minimum 4-acre lot sizes or minimum, you know, big lots, which really means no development in the rural area. So I did
Are
try
they
to.
really selling the land to the solar or are they leasing it to them?
Leasing.
Well, they're saving their land by having it leased.
Yeah,
It's a long-term lease.
It's a long-term
So they don't.
20 years.
Yeah, so the ownership doesn't really transfer.
No.
and the
but
minimum
you used
lot
to.
area wouldn't necessarily apply to that if
Correct.
they're just leasing.
Okay.
Yeah. We can talk about solar. I want to leave some time at the end because I have some questions and that might be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we leave it as it is for now, but keep it open, kind of keep this open as a,
If you did change it though, what would you change it to? You know what I mean? That-
Yeah,
well, it would be
Acre
somewhere
and a
between
half, an
40 and
acre.
8.
You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
you're backing yourself into zoning.
So the other things that I just want to draw your attention to. Of course, we are now generally aware that if you're connected to the public sewer and in the designated growth area, the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet. The minimum lot area per dwelling unit is 1,250 for the first 4 and then 5,000 square feet after. Unfortunately, there's kind of nothing we can do about that. Although I will talk a little bit later on if we get to it this evening, because I did create this staff review process for less than 4 units that we talked about at a previous meeting. So I'll kind of walk you through what I'm thinking there. Yes, this 20,000 square feet, if you're using septic systems in the growth area, again, that's a state requirement. It matches DEP requirements for septic systems and sort of is the lowest you can go. Same with 10,000 square feet. If you're within the rural area, but you're connected to sewer, this is a requirement that's coming out of the state. So not a ton that I can do to play with there, but just wanted to bring it to your attention. The one thing that I did want to flag is these two, the 40,000 square feet, if you're on septic and in the rural, is your current requirement for septic lots. And the 4,000 square feet per dwelling unit is your current requirement if you're using septic. If you're doing a multifamily on septic, just so you know. The next thing I want to talk a little bit more about is I did also change some of the frontage requirements in the critical rural area. So your current frontage requirements is 75 feet in the growth area and 200 feet in the rural, I believe. So what I did here was, this is, if you're, so these two would be if you're in the growth area, essentially stays the same as current requirements. The 150 feet would be if you're using, septic systems within the growth area. I thought it might be appropriate to go down slightly from our 200. The other thing is that those lots that have septic systems in the growth area, I did some analysis of their current frontage, just so we're not creating nonconformities by changing anything. And many of them have only 150 feet, like they would currently be non-conforming. So I thought that this would also address some nonconformities that we already have. And then in both the rural area and the critical rural area, I kept your current requirement of 200 feet. Okay, and then basically what I tried to clarify here is the requirements that we already have about frontage along an existing public or private road, and then for new lots fronting a new road proposed to be built. So you'll see that these are slightly different, but they essentially match current requirements. The one thing that I want to flag for discussion purposes while we're on this topic, I'm flagging here for new lots fronting an existing public or private road. And then we have roads to be built to the standards of the Town of Monmouth Streets and Ways Ordinance. I am wondering if there is a desire to create a mechanism that differentiates between town ways, where we expect them to be built to a higher standard because they will be driven on by many cars, and private roads, which may serve less lots, which we have many of in the community. And which we currently don't have a great mechanism of regulating or allowing to occur. So one of my concerns, and I'll try to explain this in a way that makes sense. So I have gotten some inquiries around, can I build a duplex on this lot that fronts a private road? And some of these private roads have only caretakers, property owners around their maintenance. It becomes a safety issue when they're not adequately maintained for fire department access and emergency access to get down those roads. Some of them you drive on and you can tell that these have not been well maintained and there's some access concerns. So I think it might be appropriate, but at the same time, I recognize that private road development in Monmouth is the historical development pattern. That's sort of what we've come up around. So I'm wondering if it's appropriate in this Street and Ways Ordinance to differentiate between, right now we just have, I think, local and collector. What if we had collector, local, and private? And private was less strict standards, but at least gives us a review mechanism for when these new roads are proposed.
And would you do it by length of the road or number of
Probably
units?
number of units, because my other concern is, so occasionally I'll get inquiries from people who are trying to just split a lot into two. because they're trying to, you know, give something to their son or what have you. You have to be able to provide frontage, though. We don't necessarily have a mechanism where you can allow frontage from a new easement. We allow it if it's old easement or right of way, but not for a new easement. And so I'm wondering if, like, by creating private road standards, it would also help us with some of this development of like what I call back lots or, you know, these lots that maybe it's only one or two, but they're both fronting on a private road and now they have adequate frontage and can access them and it's all safe.
It's the difference between an easement and a right of way.
It's the difference between an easement and a right of way and something there where we actually have a review mechanism to make sure these things are safe.
Because we do it now
Right,
with easements.
Yeah.
When there is no right of way.
right. Yeah.
Because it's the only way you could do a back lot and stay away from flag lots, which we don't allow.
Right. And so, I am bringing this up because I think some of you know, I started my career in Saco and we had these private road ordinances. We do have quite rural areas of Saco and farmland areas and stuff. And they were used fairly frequently by folks who were just trying to split off one lot. And it was a staff review process. We made sure it was safe. We reviewed it with the fire department and they were good to go. But also it was built such that it wasn't going to, you know, they could sell a lot and we were avoiding problems with civil disputes in the future around who should maintain these things.
Yeah.
We were also requiring evidence of a private road maintenance agreement to be submitted as well.
Isn't the state gonna mix this up with their ADUs?
So it's a good question. I mean, as was mentioned, ADUs are now allowed to be on any lot. You don't have to have frontage to do an ADU though. So to me, they're just kind of two separate issues.
Okay.
Yeah. But to your point, I mean, you could do a back lot and then have a significant amount of units.
So how'd you make out?
Backdoor approach.
Yes, but at least now we know that the access is safe.
But how'd you make
Don't
out
have-
with duplexes? How do you make out with duplexes? Duplexes by the state mandates are commercial, not residential.
Don't fully understands the line of questioning.
I can inspect a duplex, Dave can't.
Okay. And what's your concern around?
Whether you're gonna change it between rural duplex allowed or rural just a house with a split.
So we, as we know, don't really regulate around uses in Monmouth. So theoretically, you can do a duplex anywhere that you have meet the minimum lot area requirements for 2 units. Or you can do 2 separate houses anywhere that you can meet the minimum lot area requirements for 2 units.
See,
We're not
that's gonna be the next LD because that's what they're talking about. Because, you know, they're getting away with phosphorus controls by making them commercial duplexes because you can pay a standard and pay off the phosphorus control and beating DEP in their own game.
Yeah.
So, you know, where you couldn't build 12 houses, you can build 6 duplexes and pay the phosphorus and still be able to put them in. Where you couldn't meet the standards with 12. You know, so frontages are gonna change. 2 driveways.
So this is a valid line of questioning, if only because I just want to note that right now, I could come before the town, I could do 4 in a growth area on sewer, I could do 4 separate units, 4 separate driveways. And as long as I get a driveway permit, I do not need to have more frontage
Correct.
than we currently require.
Wow.
So, if that doesn't change with this, that's kind of the existing requirement, and we
Right.
can't necessarily regulate further than that because of these state law changes.
Okay.
But we could, I guess, I guess how we get around this is we could amend our driveway standards to not allow like Public Works to allow more than one driveway permit on local roads per lot.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we'd have better luck, even with this new select board, they actually mentioned the Z word twice at that meeting.
What?
The Z word. Oh, yeah. They're thinking seriously of talking to you.
Wow.
So, and the other, I mean, I don't want to get this far. I was trying to. I brought up to the state that the way that this is framed almost kind of compels us to create zoning. We are now taking something that I understood was never a regulatory document, comp plan.
Yeah.
Right,
growth
yeah.
areas, and essentially using that to create zones that have different requirements. Because
Absolutely.
that's what the state law said. They made it clear to me that we do not have to adopt use-based zoning. And so this is what I came up with.
Yeah.
This is where we're.
Well, I think your idea on, developing a different road standard for some of these access ways. And we haven't looked at that ordinance in
In
a long time. So,
Yeah, but then it comes down to is, financing. What is the bank gonna accept?
Well, the banks are gonna accept anything that the town approves.
rules, right, yeah, they're
So
only,
the problem is you're not gonna get the fire department to approve any of these roads, just because in 1968, we got rid of their maintenance on private roads.
Right.
And we went, we turned them all, changed the road name and gave them to everybody else. right?
Whoever wanted the road. at
Whoever
that
wanted
time,
them, they
yeah.
just changed all the names and, we went tree state, so remember, I don't
Yeah.
know what that was, but
yeah,
the roads that they just gave away, now we drive them, they couldn't handle a tanker. There's no way. They're gonna let the house burn.
So
Right?
this is also, yes, and this is kind of my concern. I'm
Exactly, you can just barely get the pickup truck down. There's no way in God's green earth to get in a tank or a pumper down there.
UPS can't go down.
right. In private roads are our historic development
Yeah,
pattern,
yeah,
and what I'm
there's no
hearing from
question.
folks is that our local road standards in the street and ways ordinance is too restrictive if the town's never gonna accept that road, which we don't think they
kind of
will.
like, yeah.
Right.
So a third tier of road may be appropriate.
I
Yeah,
think
so.
it's inevitable that we're gonna have to do that.
Yeah,
The other thing that I changed. Okay, so I didn't necessarily change frontage. Front setbacks. I'll name it a little bit more up there. So,
But you did change the 75 to 100.
What's that?
Steward. I saw that change.
are you up?
Yeah,
Yes.
that one.
Yes, this is the one we were just
We
talking
just
about.
changed the 20, yeah,
Yeah,
What is it?
changed that to 100, 75 to 100.
yeah,
From what?
That's Seward, 20,000 dwelling unit size, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Change it, what's the 75 again? It's the,
it was setback.
It's our ordinance is now 75
right, and they change it to 100?
and this was just changed
yes.
to
If
100.
you're using septic systems within the growth area, I thought it would be appropriate to so we currently have just 75 and 150.
Right.
I thought it might be appropriate to recognizing that using septic systems but within the growth area is sort of a different, now middle of the road tier. That it might also be appropriate to have sort of middle of the road frontage requirements.
So I mean, it's,
That was changed for a reason, right? We couldn't get, in the 20,000, we could not get septic systems, the size of them at the time
Yeah.
to fit with a long ranch. But now the septic systems are smaller and they will fit.
Okay.
I'm just worried
Okay.
about making it any more restricted because it's so hard to find land today. And if you make it harder by the setback being greater,
The frontage being different.
the frontage,
Frontage.
yeah, the frontage, okay.
Frontage.
So, yeah, so this is sort of, we have 75 feet right now for lots on sewer.
Yeah.
Then we have 150 feet for lots not on sewer. And that's the only way we differentiate right now.
Right.
Because we have this sort of different tier of septic system lots, but within the growth area where we do want to see development to some extent, I thought it would be appropriate to allow them to have less restrictive requirements than
Yep.
other septic system lots.
Okay, that's, and this, like I said, the septic systems are getting better designed.
So this would be like a 100 by 200 foot lot,
Right.
yeah. I don't know how much how much longer we want to spend on this. I did have a couple of questions that I want to make sure I get before we come back, so,
Go.
okay.
Go for it.
I'll
We
do,
can't go out now anyway.
There's a Tom Fairchild rule coming up, but I don't know.
I don't wanna go out.
You don't want to walk out now.
No, not yet.
I'll finish with
Have
at
a
least the
window.
dimensional standards,
5
Dave,
minutes,
so we
10
can
minutes.
check this off.
Okay.
Okay, so the other thing that you should be aware of that I changed is, building setbacks. So I did keep them the same. So in the rural areas, 50 feet. In the growth areas, 35 feet. That's our current requirements. Where we differentiate between sewer and unsewered. The one thing I want to note, that within the growth area, I think your current ordinance recognizes this because you have a footnote that says if you're within the sort of this village growth area and the setback, the front setback of the buildings on either side of you is less than 35 feet, you can match that setback.
Correct.
Here's my personal approach. I don't think we should leave it that much up to discretion. If we have a recognition that the historic development pattern of an area is a lower front setback, perhaps 20 feet, 15 feet, we can do some measuring on GIS. I think it's appropriate to just lower the frontage requirement there, but wanted to hear what you thought.
You're talking about growth area.
Talking about the growth area where you're on sewer, yeah.
My biggest problem in the growth area on sewer was the person that needed the handicap ramp that didn't have the front to do it. So I had to make them swear on the Bible that it was a temporary structure. Where they wanted to keep it, with concrete and put it in. I couldn't allow them to do it. Board of Appeals our Board of Appeals was not approving it.
Okay.
Then I sent them a couple.
They're especially sort of within this like village, I mean, as you know, just walking sort of near the post office, there's places with zero setbacks. I don't think you wanna go down to zero,
No.
but the residential lots further up by like the quick shop, those don't have 35 feet setback. That's maybe more like 15. Maybe 10.
Only other thing you have to worry about is the fence ordinance. When you reduce the front, you are automatically increasing the fence. Because you're bringing the fence line up closer to the street.
Okay.
So you have to tweak that and not have 3 foot when it's with the first 10 feet, so the neighbor can see coming out of his driveway, that whole thing changes.
Yeah, okay. But any concerns around specific to the growth area one, this is the one that I highlighted.
Well, then the side and rear are lower too, right? Side and rear setbacks. Oh, that's the accessory. Principal structure 10, accessory can be, so that could be the ADU, could be 6 feet. The original building is.
This is something that we should have a conversation about. Right now, the accessory structure, I think, had anticipated like sheds, not accessory dwelling.
Yeah.
So we should clarify that this should be principal structure and any accessory dwelling units.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So the accessory structure is listed as anything that does not require a building permit, which is under 600.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Andy called me this week because Richard had turned down someone who wanted to put an ADU on Main Street. Said there wasn't enough setback. And Andy thought he misinterpreted.
Oh, no, this is one that I've been intimately involved in and the town's attorney has gotten involved in.
Okay, so we get resolved.
No, because she can't do it.
No.
And, yeah, we can chat after.
All right.
Yeah, I'll give you my interpretation and the town attorney's interpretation.
Yeah, I didn't really look at anything. I just talked to him on the phone briefly.
Yeah,
It's not-
So that's the only change that you made?
that's the only change with setbacks. Let's talk about lot coverage now.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to flag, and I'll zoom in. Your definition of lot coverage is not just buildings. It is buildings and any impervious surface. So again, what we're thinking about is now much smaller lots within the growth area on sewer. I mean, just a driveway in a house
Think of a lot
could
of-
basically have 5,000 square feet.
Right.
So I threw out the 70% lot coverage requirement number. As we also know though, like kind of going back to this village development pattern, some of these buildings cover 100% of lot.
And now,
Combined with their parking,
But-
definitely.
don't we have a
So-
green space ordinance? A green space regulation? That we had to have a certain amount of green space?
Not really.
Not really?
No,
No,
not necessarily
okay.
growth areas. We have like the buffering requirements for
Right,
rural
okay.
areas that.
We talked about it, I don't.
So, 30% I think is your current, so I kept that the same in rural. That makes sense.
Mhm.
50% I think is your requirement currently within the growth area, or within sewer plots. I think this growth area could be more like 70-75, but wanted to get some feedback.
So what if someone had a double lot? You know, could we get that fine where we'd say if the square footage, overall square footage of the lot is under a certain percent, that it's 70%. Otherwise, it's 50.
I think that's appropriate.
You know, so because you may get a double, you know.
Yeah, why not?
So we may tie the lot coverage to the actual size of the lot. So that a
Yeah,
double,
kinda makes
but then,
That makes sense.
you know, someone could have a pretty big garage. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to, it's
Yeah.
just a thought. I mean, whether you distinguish that coverage based on the size of what size.
Even that is gonna then count the 600 that wasn't permitted, because it's still impervious.
Yeah.
If they're getting away with putting, without a permit, they're getting away with going over the lot percentage now by just putting in under 600. Even though it goes over, there's nobody there to tell them that they went over. Right?
Right.
Except for the assessor.
That's kind of after the fact though.
I like the idea of doing some sort of tiered approach where it can be 70% for small lots.
Yeah.
But then for bigger lots, it's more like the 50.
Yeah.
Correct. And use the word all. All structures,
Yeah,
all impervious.
yeah.
Use, you know,
Yeah.
if you use impervious, that includes concrete walkways and everything. Driveways, or driveway.
Roofs. Yeah, go back to grass roofs and you'll be all set.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to flag is that for critical rural areas, I dropped it down to 10%. So again, if we're looking at a 80,000 square foot lot, you'd be looking 10%, 8,000 square feet. I mean, that's a lot of buildings and a lot of like parking areas. And it makes it more difficult to develop in those areas. So, and
Okay.
which is consistent with what we anticipated with the comp plan.
Yeah.
So
So what's the matter with the 30%?
It's a critical area.
right, I think that might be appropriate in just a typical rural area, but in the areas that are more environmentally sensitive, that's really when we want to regulate impervious area more deeply.
Yeah.
Because of the stormwater phosphorus impact issues. Like that, really, that's the one that makes maybe the most sense here.
It's an advantage too, because they're not gonna come anywhere close to it if they have these large lots.
Yeah.
What's that, David?
you can drop that down, you can drop it down, but because of the size of the lot and 10% of that size of the lot is still a lot
That's a
of,
lot. That's a lot of lot.
it's a lot of lot that can be impervious.
Yeah, but it may hamper the ADU situation.
Yeah. Keep going back to that. You go, I know that.
That's really what I wanted to focus our conversation on tonight. I did have some questions that I wanted to bring up. You answered some of them already, but so one of the specific questions that I had was, we had talked about pursuing design standards at a previous meeting, and it seemed like folks were in favor about at least exploring something to alleviate some of these developments that have like all of the same, but wanted to understand how far you want me to go. I mean, I don't think we want to get into regulating like color,
No.
but I like to talk about like articulation of buildings, so kind of leaning on architectural standards, like for example, one building has to have a bay window and the other one has to have a recessed porch and the other one has to have a full porch, like something where it's a little bit different.
What's the purpose?
No shed
of it?
roofs on a B
Well,
and B.
what's really gonna motivate that is gonna be the saleability of the lot, of the structure.
You talk to the developers and we have talked to the developers. It's virtually impossible. They get so many arguments. Well, I want the red one. I want, the green one. I want,
Well, she's not talking colors, but architecturally wise, I mean, maybe just like in a big development, like at least three different styles or something.
yeah.
That's not adding,
That's great if you're pre-selling.
Yeah.
But if you're not pre-selling, he's gonna put what sells the best.
I don't know what you.
My question was, what's the purpose?
So the purpose, as was brought up at a previous meeting, was to eliminate the issues that we're having with developments proposing building the same building over and over and it all looking the same.
Yeah.
This is a matter of taste ultimately.
But
So-
it's really a matter of saleability. I mean, if you go down and
You go down to Long Island where Levittown is, it's a whole town of exactly the same
Same
thing.
thing, yeah.
There's 50,000 houses that are exactly the same.
After World War II, I mean, this is the
That's
way
how
to.
they did it.
Yeah,
That's the
it
way
was
they
the
did it.
cheapest.
Good, so let them build them in New Jersey, but not here. Isn't it inconsistent with the character of the town that you would have that kind of development?
No, because you get 18-year-olds that say, no, this is what they want. This is the change that's the generations are coming up with.
10-year-olds pulling that's right there.
Okay,
I'm with you.
whereas this is an aesthetic, personal thing,
you're right.
how much regulation do you want to apply to?
Should it become a recommendation? And there's a recommendation that if you're building a development of more than
Yeah.
10 houses,
Then make it a Z word.
something, I don't know.
So I'll throw something else out. As you probably have noticed, when I do my completeness reviews, I'm giving their completeness comments specific to the ordinance. And then I sometimes give this other set of comments this would make the project better. It's not a requirement, but here's what I'm thinking. Perhaps what we could do as a board is kind of discuss some standard advisory comments that are not regulatory in nature, but are just suggestions of, hey, we have gotten some feedback that we would prefer to see multiple architectural styles. Please consider.
Yeah, as long as you don't mandate it.
It's a suggestion.
It's a suggestion, yeah.
Suggestion.
I'm sure that if Chase got a suggestion not to do a standard cabin that he builds for the shows, to do something different.
He might have done it.
And he might consider changing those.
Yeah, well, he should really, because he looks.
But it was the middle of winter. He had something for his guys to do.
Yeah,
And
They're awful.
they are on foundations as approved by the state of Maine,
Yeah.
so.
Cabins stuck in the middle of a field. It just looks ridiculous.
But see,
And it's
but to him, he may
inconsistent.
not.
Some effervescence, something to.
That's so, it's again, to them, it may be
Then
fine.
they are
Yes.
the up and coming way to do it.
Right.
Yep, it's sort of their signature style.
It is their style.
So I think I'm hearing that you're not necessarily interested in pursuing something that's regulatory.
But it would be nice if it was written somewhere.
Something we could give people or
Suggested.
pointers.
Yes.
Advisory, okay,
Yeah.
we need to develop,
Here's the recommended.
Yeah. Yeah. And we look so kindly. More
Oh,
kindly.
don't do that.
No, no.
Don't say that.
She said.
You can't break the rules.
No.
Do that, they're more likely to be approved.
When I was first in the legislature, talking to the select board and used the Z word,
Oh,
and it was like a nuclear explosion. And now, all of a sudden,
They're finding that the Z word will help them
the
in other
Z
ways.
word, yes.
Takes the heat off.
Yes.
Yep, of course it does.
Exactly.
In a previous life and
Yeah.
thing, we had zoning, we had a lot of land that was similar to Monmouth, where you had dairy farms and all this other kind of stuff in that. And at first it was the same thing. They're gonna, the planning board, the select board, they're gonna run them out of town on a rail and that. But 10 years down the road, you had more control over the growth.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And as
Of
long as you
course.
made, because we had various villages, quote unquote, within the town, as long as you made exceptions for those, it's like historic and that they, even if one of them burnt down, they could rebuild it on the same footprint. But, it, in the end, it's very, very clear cut.
I know.
Makes a whole lot more sense.
My retirement check comes from my
And eventually,
zoning
all
board of
towns
appeals.
like this evolved
Era.
into something like that.
Yep.
I was chairman of the
Just
zoning
but
board of
yeah,
appeals for
when I
15
mentioned it the
years.
first time,
And I just deferred my pay.
Did they stone you?
practically, yeah.
Get paid for,
And I just, I walked out.
You got any more questions?
I think
I'll be
that's
back
all my
with that
questions for
word.
right now. I will have like
David.
more to review next.
Just David.
okay.
Okay, dead zoning. Well, next to you, he wants to work fiberglass boats and everything else, and he can do it.
No, there were restrictions on in a particular zone. There were
It had to
restrictions
meet
upon
Lot size, had to
lot
meet
size
certain-
and acceptable.
and general
Eventually,
areas
we-
where you could deviate.
I couldn't
Residential.
have the lot next to you and decide I want to raise dogs.
Have you done that?
That's
Just
those
to make
types of
use
things. They had,
Of zoning.
along with the zoning, there were acceptable
Even,
uses. So,
Lisbon has it.
Well, why don't we adjourn and then we can.
yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Turn it.
Yeah, and we got